Reading Ballard for the first time can be a daunting prospect for the traditional science fiction reader, because Ballard defies all expectations. And as I've said before on this channel, the problem is your expectations of science fiction. Science fiction is not a collection of tropes, it is a way of looking at the world as it changes, as the human mind is changed by technology. In the early 1960s, some 5 years after beginning to write science fiction stories for magazines, J.G. Ballard made some famous pronouncements about the future of science fiction. He said that the true subject of science fiction for the future was not outer space, but inner space, the human mind and its psychopathology. He also said that Earth was the only truly alien planet, and that our planet and our minds should be the focus of what would come in the future of SF. That it was time to move on from the tropes and traditions established in the golden age of the late 1930s and early 1940s, and to move beyond even the stunning social satire of American science fiction in the 1950s, which brought him into the genre. Ballard's only concession to conventional science fiction comes in some of his early short stories and in his initial tetralogy of novels, The Disaster Quartet, which began with the suppressed novel The Wind from Nowhere, suppressed now by the Ballard estate as he wasn't satisfied with the quality of the work. He wrote it very quickly in 2 weeks under contract to an American paperback publisher. The money from this book would enable him to make a step forward to become a writer full-time and to write the novel he really wanted to write. While The Wind from Nowhere is underrated by Ballard himself and is a very fine novel, it is in the Wyndham mode, except there is one crucial difference. The reason for, the explanation for, the underlying metaphor of the wind that comes from nowhere to destroy the world is never fully explained. So even in this work, we can see the Ballard of the future, the ambiguity, the strangeness, the oddness, the desire to defy expectations arising. Ballard's novel The Drowned World, published in 1962, the first of the Gollancz Yellow Jacket SF line, though not the first SF novel they actually published, is seen as his first novel, though as I say, it is his second. It's the mid-21st century and an ecological disaster has struck the world. Temperatures have risen, polar ice caps have melted, and much of the earth has been flooded. Only around the poles is civilization now possible, and London is sunk beneath the waters and is at the centre of a vast swamp where life is much as it was in the Triassic Age. One of the expedition members is a scientist named Robert Kerens, and amid the lush swamplands and hidden monuments of a drowned London, Kerens begins to experience strange dreams. Just as the Earth has regressed to a past state, so too Kerens seems to be making a psychic descent into prehistory. Left in the primal lagoons covering the city when the expedition heads back north, Kerens and 2 of his colleagues begin to respond to the deep, artivistic urges that are calling to them from the surreal landscape, but they are interrupted by the arrival of Strangman, a dandified pirate with a cohort of violent henchmen intent on plundering the drowned world. Ballard's fascination with the exploration of inner space and with plumbing those psychic depths, so unusual and liberating in the SF of the early 1960s, is most brilliantly revealed in The Drowned World. His prescience in describing a world transformed by environmental catastrophe may seem all the greater as the years passed, but the strength of the novel lies not so much in this as in the voluptuous power with which he conjures up his vision of a primeval landscape and its effects on those who enter it. The Drowned World is a short novel, but it is one which provides a startling and memorable perspective on the conscious and subconscious mind. Throughout his early work, Ballard constantly references the Surrealist painters, Dali, de Chirico, Delvaux, seeing them as clear indicators of the psychopathology of the individual, who became more and more fragmented as the 20th century unfolded into modernity. In Ballard's disaster novels, his protagonists do not so much fight the apocalypses they face, but embrace them, realizing that this is actually what they want. And this was always the impulse, really, beneath catastrophe fiction in the 1950s and onwards. It revealed what we really wanted, a world that was denuded of people, where we were freer to indulge in our fantasies and our ideas of what we would do in a world that was wrecked and empty, a world without work, a world without rules. Following The Drowned World was its sublime successor, The Drought, his finest early novel, with a picture of a world drying out as chains of polymers form an invisible shield over the surface of the sea, preventing evaporation and resulting in a worldwide drought of the title. A cast of characters, a ship of fools, is on the strand and they cannot escape, and it's wonderful opportunities for them to enact their fantasies, their dreams and their deepest desires emerges in the chaos of survival in this environmentally destroyed world. As a novelist, Ballard was a quester. He was always seeking to move forward, and in retrospect, it is easy to see his work fall into categories, either as parts of series or as singletons. His series are thematic rather than chronological, and the disaster tetralogy ends with the Crystal World, where he is clearly straining at the leash of the form of the catastrophe novel, even as he reimagined it, with a bizarre and silly cosmic accident summed up in a single paragraph as the excuse which is needed, the novum that is needed for science fiction to exist. And it's almost as if his tongue is sticking through his cheek in doing so. And the book is set in Africa as things begin to crystallize, organic forms begin to turn to glass. Although it's a commonplace now to compare Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation to the Strugatsky's Roadside Picnic because of the Zone novel implications, Vandermeer's Annihilation is actually more like the Crystal World in its ultimate effects. Having hammered the final nails into the coffin of the now defunct disaster genre, Ballard was ready to move forward and went into an experimental period, producing the condensed novels, short stories with fragmented personalities at their hearts, which formed the book The Atrocity Exhibition some years later. He then moved into a new phase, arguably not science fiction, producing his urban trilogy, Crash, Concrete Island and High Rise, three of his most extreme books.